came to Myrtle Grove when Norman Carr was pastor here. We had been about 20 years in the Warrington Methodist Church. And our son, Jeffrey, the youngest boy, Jeffrey, well, it ended up at Warrington, where he was about the only active youth in the church. It did have a large youth group, but attrition had taken care of that. Rudy Heinzelman was the youth director here, and Rudy had heard about Jeff, so he called him and said, "We're fixing to go on a summer trip. Would you like to go with us?" So he came and asked us, and we said, "Yeah, tell him yeah." So he went on that youth group with Rudy Heinzelman.
A bicycle trip?
And I'm not sure what it was, just a youth group that, as far as we knew. And so when he came back, he asked us, he said, "Mom, Dad, can I start going to Myrtle Grove?" So he came to Myrtle Grove a number of years before us. But he was always telling us about Myrtle Grove. And, why don't y'all move? Why don't you move? So at a point in our lives, we made the decision to leave Warrington and move to Myrtle Grove, because at that time we had moved from the Warrington area to Mayfair, and so it wasn't far around here, so we said, okay, we'll move. We came here, and we met. I had known a number of people, and so had Maxine, but I had known Jim Bird, Jim Benton, and what was my real mentor there? Anyhow, I know a number of people. Mr. McGee, whose first name I do not know, but he was a mainstay in this church, and I had met him at a Myrtle Grove Bible study, morning Bible study that was held down at one of the restaurants that had gone out of business now, but he kind of headed that up, and Reverend Chandler was a pastor here at that time. And so things worked out well because I knew a number of people. And Bud Rogers was the name I'm trying to think of. Bud was a tremendous encourager to me, and a tremendous part of my life to come here, and since I've been here. And so Maxine and I talked it over. We were out near San Antonio one morning. We had left Houston after spending the night in Houston, and we were going west, and we had talked about it, and we made that decision at that point in time when we came back to move here. So we came here because of Jeff. And
so how has the church impacted your life and the life of your children?
Well, I think really what brought me here, we also was the friends that I had in the United Methodist Women, and I joined the Methodist Women. Then I joined the choir. That's when I got started.
What other ways have y'all served over the years? What ministries have you been involved in?
Well, here in the church, I don't know, I served on the administrative board, several of the committees, the pastor parish relations, a number of things. What about you? I know you for a while were with, as you say, the United Methodist Women. Yeah.
Well, I was on the choir. I was on the choir a long time. That's only two things I guess I can remember.
Can you talk about how being here at this church has impacted your spiritual life, your life with Jesus?
You want to start with that?
You can go. I'll go after you.
I had so many things really, that the people impacted my life, and there's so many people here that became a vital part of my life. Prior to that, at Warrington, I had served on every committee there, and including eventually chairman of the administrative board. And Maxine had been president of the United Methodist Women, and it was a big church at that time, a lot of people. But when we came here, knowing those people, they just impacted our lives just in a really an everyday business, an everyday thing, you know. At Warrington, I keep mentioning Warrington, but at Warrington I had become a certified lay pastor. And so I spent a lot of Sunday mornings pastoring in other churches. Well, when I came here, that continued. And that was a big thing in my life, to be able to pastor at other churches. And it just was a great thing in my life. And then, due to a fellow by the name of Grady Watson and a fellow by the name of Bill McDermott, I got involved in lay witness, and that was a tremendous thing in my life. I think Bill had mentioned listening to the testimonies of other people, and to this very day, even in our church, when Pastor Riley calls for people to give testimonies, I listen intently to what they're saying, and this was not pastors talking. These are fellow church members. These are people I know, telling about their lives and how much I enjoy that. And so I like to hear testimonies. And so doing that lay witness, listening to people's testimonies, and then being able to share back was a great thing. In fact, Dennis, I was on Maxine and I were both, we were on a lay witness mission to Pastor Riley's church very, very early in his pastoral career, and how wonderful that was. And even though we were not close, we had kept contact, and so we knew Pastor Riley and Angela for many, many years, and we kind of watched where they went, and so we knew part of their history. Got to know. Also, we did a lay witness at his father-in-law's church a couple of times, I believe. But so it was interesting.
Yes.
But those things impacted my life, and they came out of, a lot of it came out of here, and the encouragement I got from here.
How have you seen God work in this church over the years?
First of all, let me just mention how God worked in my life, and Maxine has got to talk and tell you about something, but I mentioned a few moments ago Bud and Jean Rogers, and Bud had given and I'm not even sure where we were, but Bud had given a testimony. He had given his testimony, which I'll say for him to give whenever he wants to, but he had given his testimony, and here this great big, young hunk of a man, and he gave his testimony, and it just hit me, and it's always stuck with me, and so I mentioned that later to Bud, and so he's been a mentor, been an encourager of mine ever since. And so I just want to say that about Bud and Jean. Jean and Maxine served on did a bowling. They were on a bowling team together, weren't you? Yeah, at one time. So that was part of her ministry also, to be on that bowling team with some church members here, even though she was not a member here at that time either. So.
Well, I think Jean is probably one of the reasons I wanted to come here, because we became such good friends. And we bowled together, and she said, "Why don't you come to Myrtle Grove?" So we did.
And you found a lot of love, huh? Yes.
But
Still a lot of friends here.
Pastor Chandler started a Sunday school class. And he basically taught that class for a while, but then the gentleman that then taught it after him, that took up at that point, he left the church, and when he did, I became the Sunday school teacher of that church, and so I taught Sunday school here for many years.
So what
And
was the name of that class?
Let's discover.
Discovery class,
Okay.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know. That was just totally enjoyable, and Pastor Riley and I talked recently about the scripture where it says there's a time for and a place for everything, and that just came this time when it was my time to just kind of some medical problems and things of that nature just kind of set back, and so someone else took over the Sunday school class.
Yeah.
But all those years I taught that was great. So
Well, that didn't keep you and Maxine from being a light to all of us anyway. You continued to do that. Yes. Are there any stories you'd like to tell or anything that I have not asked you?
well, you said earlier before, I think when we were just chatting about even if it was a funny story, and you may want to edit this out later, but
That's up to Patrick.
we had came and sat in the office with Norman. Well, let me back up to say that when Jeff wanted us to come over here so much, and we were seriously considering it, Dr. Jim Potter was associated with our business, and so at a meeting we had one time or something, I asked Jim about it, and Jim said we have a pastor and an associate pastor who complement each other so much. He said that it's just really a great, and so I'm not sure who the associate was,
Rudy?
but Norman Carr was the pastor.
Norman and Rudy? No, Rudy was you.
No, I'm not sure who it was, but so that also helped us to when he told me that kind of sealed the bargain to come on over, and so like I say, we'd sit in there several times with Pastor Carr, and he knew us, we knew him, but I had never met his wife Frances, and I'm sure she had absolutely no idea who I was, but at some meeting during the week or something, I was going out the door by the pastor's office, which was where a lot of us went out at that time. And as I went by the door of the kitchen, Frances Carr was coming out the door, and she stopped like this over her shoulder, and she said, "Ladies, I'm going potty." And smart aleck me, to this lady I never met, I knew who she was. She had no idea who I was. I just said, "How many times have I told you to go potty before you left the house?" And then I wandered on off. But later on, we got to be such great friends, and Pastor Norman and Frances would go on vacation with us, and Frances would go on vacation with us without the pastor many a time, so it was a great relationship. So, but I have a lot of stories to tell, but that was one of the funny ones.
That's
I
funny.
think.
That is funny.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't even remember a lot of the people now, they're gone, but I did a lot of things for the elderly that I enjoyed doing, because a lot of them couldn't get out. A lot of them didn't drive, and so it was just a good way for me to minister to them,
So,
Miss Shara, and I can't even remember people's names now, but, because a
so
lot
you
of
used
them are
to
gone.
visit them?
Yeah,
You visited them and took them food?
yeah. Did a lot of things with them.
Visit in their homes, carried them food, carried them tapes, just a little everything, right, Beth? Yeah.
I enjoyed doing that.
It's so important,
Yeah.
so important. Uh,
Can you remember a certain time that you visited with someone that really meant something to you? You felt like that, God did a great work in that visit?
Right now, I can't. I've forgotten so much of that, but I enjoyed visiting every one of them.
Yeah, just, anyone just really stick out in your mind?
But maybe Miss Shara,
Tell us a little bit about her.
and, because she didn't get out, I don't think she got out very much,
No,
did she?
no,
And I'd go visit her and take her something every now and then, and just enjoyed visiting with her.
What do you think it meant to her?
I hope it meant a lot, because she was confined, kind of, I don't know how many people she had visited, but I always enjoyed it with her.
And she had practically run the church up to a certain extent, so I'm sure she appreciated knowing everything that was going on.
Yeah.
And what it meant a great deal to Maxine, and what a part it played in her life at that time. Being in the choir was one of her great things, and doing this ministry, and so it was wonderful. It was wonderful for both of us, but to watch Maxine and her growth during that period and those things that were going on was wonderful.